All right, welcome. It's been it's been some time since I've actually put a video out. Um, at first, it was just because I was enjoying the Christmas break, but it's also because I've been busy trying to get all the documentation sent in for my clinicals for respiratory therapy that's going to be starting up on the 27th for me. Um, and work, work on the ambulances in the county's been busy for me too. Um, I was actually supposed to work tonight, but I don't know. I caught something. I caught something on the last shift I did. I've either got COVID again, or I've got the flu. Why do I say either of those two? Well, because I can tell just from my symptoms that it's probably viral instead of bacterial. Um, Viral infections tend to have more systemic, system-wide effects. That's me to a nutshell. But the symptoms aren't, uh, they're mild. You know, sore throat that's been bothering the crap out of me. Um, I know I've taken my temperature a couple times and I don't technically have a fever. I do feel slightly, slightly feverish. So I'd say I've got a slight fever. Um, all of which precludes me from working on the ambulances until I actually get better. There's no sense in spreading whatever it is that you've got to the patients that you're trying to help. So I found myself with unexpected time off, which is cool because it lets me record a couple of things. Record this, and then maybe in a few hours or tomorrow, continue on in Luke. But what I wanted to kind of mention tonight was just uh, four Christian insights into how God works, into how the God of the Bible works through emergency services in this country and everywhere that there are emergency services, and two uh, two tips, two encouragements for Christians that are in the emergency services. Um, I wrote them down in my handy notebook. So let me water myself and then we will get into it. Need it. Well, now one of the things I wrote down here, the first thing I wrote down um, is, through working on the ambulances, I just kind of get a sense of what I wrote down as the always there-ness of God. Now, you know how it says in Hebrews that, um, goodness. You know how it says in Hebrews that, Christians can always come boldly before the throne of grace and Jesus is a very present help in a time of need. That's God, not just to his people, but to all that, anyone that is repentant and turns to him would be his people. But, you get the idea. Like God's always there, just like with the emergency services. Like, no matter how ridiculous a patient can be, and they can be ridiculous sometimes, no matter how many times they refuse. What we always tell them when we leave is, look, if anything changes, if you change your mind, you can always call 911 right back. And we make sure to emphasize that, but God's the same way, Jesus is the same way. No matter how many times you've actually spat in his face and spurned him, like the second that you humble yourself, the second that you actually agree with God that you need the cross, that you need his life in you. Like at any point that you come to that realization and admit that before God and repent, like he's always there. A second thing I wrote down was just how, it's kind of two things in one, but one of the things I was telling, I tell my wife and some of the other, care providers, like, what I like about EMS is the chance, and I don't think every single care provider takes the as best advantage this is possible, but the opportunity is there to really do a lot of preventative maintenance with people. Because sometimes people call you out for emergencies. A lot of times people call you out for falls. And then everything else that doesn't fall into those categories, in my mind, is quote unquote overreactions, fear responses. But I don't look at that as bad, like, I'm pretty certain what this is actually a light flu, because I'm vaccinated against the flu. So I'm vaccinated against the flu and COVID. So if I get either one, it's not going to be as bad as getting it without the vaccine. And I know this from personal experience. I've had COVID before and after the vaccine. If you have to get COVID, you definitely would rather get COVID having been vaccinated. This sucks, but it definitely does not suck as bad as the first time I had COVID. Oh my gosh, I was like 2.5. It was terrible. But like I was saying, you get to do a lot of preventative medicine with people, like they get a ache in their stomach or, little muscular chest pain or whatever. And so they call 911 freaking out. You get there, you figure out, okay, like the situation's really actually not bad. But you can take the opportunity to just have a little discussion, with the patient and just be like, hey, like this is how this system works. This is when you really need to be worried. These are the things that you can do to kind of, to take care of the system as best as possible. So, in a lot of ways you're kind of the front lines of, informing a patient on how to take care of themselves, and that's not me saying that EMTs and paramedics are a replacement for family medicine practitioners, because we're not, but it still is pretty cool that we sometimes get to function in a somewhat similar vein when we're talking prevention instead of crisis mode. And what I kind of wrote down for that is just EMS practitioners get to embody truth against lies, right? So, we roll up on a lot of people that believe a lot of what I call junk medicine. They believe it wholeheartedly, but, at best case scenario, junk medicine doesn't do anything at all. Worst and usual case scenarios, junk medicine actually has a harmful effect on you. And that really shouldn't be a surprise if you're a Christian. Like, the entire creation was placed under the effects of sin and then further cursed because one lie was believed in the garden. Like, lies are damaging when believed. In doing this job, we get to really confront a lot of lies and, a lot of junk medicine, replacing error with truth. Really love that aspect of the job. Very much reflective of the nature of God. He is truth, cannot lie. And then just fourth, like, Jesus is the model care provider, just thinking these last few weeks on, like, now that I'm kind of entering healthcare career, just kind of rethinking all the implications. What does it really mean to say that Jesus is the great physician? Obviously, best of the best can fix anything. That's understood. But what else goes into being a healthcare provider? You know, I mean, aside from loving and caring for the patient, which I feel like are covered under other attributes of God, I feel like one of the you can't be a healthcare provider if you don't care about understanding the actual problem. You know, like one of the things that separates good healthcare practitioners from not good ones is good ones investigate. Good ones like to investigate. You know, like we like understanding the problem, understanding the patient in front of us, treating the patient. You know, not just the disease that the patient has. You know, Jesus is that. You know, I mean, really, like, look through the Gospels, you know, or look through some of my content in Luke. Like, Jesus is the model care provider. Every single person that he rolls up on, he always gets to the core of what the issue is. You know, very rarely do we stay on the things that, you know, that particular person, like the complaint that the person brought to Jesus. Jesus starts there, but he doesn't end there. He ends on what their actual problem is and treats that. You know, and I just think good care providers in EMS, like, you got to be good at knowing what the real problem is. You know, where do you throw your resources at, you know? And the fourth thing, biggest meditation to me is how much God uses the emergency services as the vehicle by which he gives people second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth chances. I mean, so many times, you know, and I get it, you know, I understand, you know, you know, like the stories of, you know, the doctors didn't know what to do. You know, everyone was on their last legs. They prayed to God, and God miraculously healed, you know, this person. Do I believe that happens? Yeah. Have I seen that happen? Yeah, I have. But you want to know what I've seen more of? You know, I've seen more of God providentially using emergency services personnel to bring people back from the brink of death. To bring people back from death. Like, very rarely, and sure, I'm new to this, but still, so far, very rarely have I seen something I would call legitimately miraculous. Actually, in practice, I've not seen anything I'd call miraculous. The one thing I would call a miracle is something I witnessed off duty, if that makes sense. But just God's providence to save lives through ordinary means, I think, is something that's very much overlooked. You know, like, you know, had a guy fall, you know, picked up a guy that fell 30 feet, you know. Fell really long way off a ladder, you know, dislocated a lot of his hip, a lot of internal bleeding, you know. Like, was there anything miraculous that happened on that call? No, I can tell you that because I was on that call. But, I'll tell you what was providential, you know, getting to him in the time that we did, you know. Like, just all the things that we do on trauma scenes, like, it's providence. That's God supplying for the lives of his image bearers. Not necessarily his people, but his image bearers. God supplying for the needs of humanity through regular, non-miraculous means. EMS is a part of that. The emergency services are a part of that. And, you know, my two pieces of advice to Christians that are in EMS. Firstly, remember, you are the hands and feet of Jesus on every call. And I do mean every call, not just the ones that are interesting to you, not just the ones that are that make for really good stories, but you're also the hands and feet of Jesus on, a run-of-the-mill fall call. A fall and can't get up. Sure, it's not medically interesting, usually, but you're still the hands and feet of Jesus there. Like, they are human beings that need you. I hope and pray that you give them a good visualization of the Messiah. Two, you are also light for your partners. Not just for your patients, but for your partners. What do I mean by this? Well, as you might imagine, working on the edge of life and death, you're going to have days that are completely boring. You're going to have other days, you're going to have seasons where, death is a very prominent thing in your orbit, in the orbits of those around you. And it's a job that can really grate people and bring them down. It's a job that can, if handled wrongly, I think, can really destroy hope. I was having a conversation with a paramedic. Excuse me. I was having a conversation with a paramedic on, the question of tragedy. Not the problem of evil, but the problem of tragedy, kind of a corollary to it, And he's being a paramedic, he's seeing just a lot of tragedy, Like, you can't live in a fantasy world where death doesn't exist when you do this job, which is a bit of a blessing and a bit of a curse, depending on how you handle it. But he was saying to me, he was on a call where, young, infant, less than a year-old infant, died, didn't make it, and so he asked me, like, how could a good God exist in a world where babies die, let alone babies dying the way that they do, and it led to a really, I pray, fruitful discussion for a couple of hours. It was a couple of hours because providentially didn't have any calls for that stretch of time, but we were actually getting into some real conversations. What does the Bible actually say concerning tragedy? Not what you've heard Christians say, but what does the actual Bible actually say concerning these things? And before I switched agencies, I had a partner that, she was just always asking, like, how are you so, not just chill, but like, how do you have such a swell attitude doing this job, And I just told her, I was like, well, because I know that the day is coming when this whole job will be obsolete. I do this job looking forward to the day when Jesus comes back, makes everything new, and we won't need ambulances anymore. So I don't just practice health for the sake of helping people live a little bit longer down here and then die anyway. I do this job in hopes of preserving life here so that the gospel can be preached to these people, either from me in the trucks or, later on in life from someone else, and that hopefully their life can be saved in an eternal sense. Roll up on an overdose, hit you with some Narcan, save your life. Not just to save your life here, but hopefully so that you can hear the gospel later in life. And I've already had that happen for me at least once. You know, I talked about it in another video, I think, but picked up a patient, and God had clearly been doing a lot of work in her, long before she was in the back of my ambulance. But I told my partner, I was like, look, man, like I'll ride with this one in the back, and we're talking, we're just talking eternal things, man. Like, she was like, yeah, I'm done with this. This is the last time, I want to be in this position. Like, I want to know Jesus. I want to give my life to him, and so, we end up praying with her for salvation in the waiting room, from all I know, this patient passed away a few days later. But I mean, like, that right there is why I do what I do, to salvage lives for eternity. And when you bring an eternal perspective into this job, it really chases off the demons of depression and and anxiety and just all of the weight of futility. I mean, when you're a Christian that lives like in an EMS, you are different. Some people don't want anything to do with you. Others flock to it. But yeah, just kind of wanted to get some things off my chest and just kind of throw something up on YouTube. It's been a minute since I've recorded, but in the next week or so, hopefully, you can expect a continuation in the Gospel of Luke. Until then, catch you later. And, prayers for your boy that I heal up quickly. Peace.